we going?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Shepard, and I did my research on assessing the validity of LA Metro Rail's construction and extension and the system that we have currently. I'm currently an urban and regional planning major, and so this is something that's very pertinent to me and my interests. Okay, so the purpose of my research is to look at the Metro Rail system and analyzing the ridership and the mileage that's traveled on the system, assess whether all the construction and extensions we're having right now are currently justified. And then through that, then make changes to policy for the future so that we can better use and apply this system. And for some of you, everyone has differing degrees of their experience with public transit. And for most of you, probably your only experience with public transit is using the shuttle bus to get to and from the parking lot at Disneyland. So a lot of this information might be new for you, but proceed. So there's this cliche that if you know where you came from, you know where you're going. So what I'm going to do right now is just do a very quick, brief overview of the history of rail transit in the LA Metro area. So some of you may already know this, but for those of you who don't, back in the early 20th century, we had a rail transit system called Pacific Electric. It was created and operated by Henry Huntington, who was born into a rail tycoon family. And we can see that this system is quite extensive. You have Long Beach over here, Huntington Beach went down into the OC, Santa Monica, the South Bay, Westwood, San Fernando, downtown Pasadena, and even San Bernardino. This is a very extensive system, extending over 1,000 miles. You can proceed. And so a common misconception that people have is that suburban sprawl was created by the freeways, but actually suburban sprawl was created by this rail transit system. You had one downtown hub, which was downtown LA, and then you had all these smaller communities like Santa Monica, San Pedro, and Long Beach, and all these other areas. What happened is that the rail transit system enforced the idea that people could live in these communities and then ride into LA to do their shopping or their work. And then the freeways merely reinforced this mentality into people, except it became very exacerbated, and now we have the problems that we have today with congestion. So go ahead and continue. So we can see here that even 60, 70 years ago, trains, cars, bikes, pedestrians all shared the road together. This is something that's very different from what we have today. And so I think it's interesting that when we're making changes to policy for the future, we often are taking solutions from the past because we are having more emphasis on cycling. We are having more emphasis on using public transit. Go ahead and proceed. What happened, unfortunately, is that a bus company bought out Pacific Electric, and it would be more profitable for them to operate buses than trains. And so what they did following World War II is that they scrapped the Pacific Electric fleet, and then we were left with a bus system. But buses can only go so far in LA, and so we have up until that point, we had a very, very dilapidated public transit system. So continue. So today we have LA Metro Rail, and you can see we have all manner of different lines. We have 4 light rail lines, the blue, green, expo, and gold, and then we have 2 heavy rail lines, the purple, the red, and 2 busways, orange and silver. And so the difference between heavy rail and light rail is heavy rail can carry more people, it's more rapid. Light rail carries a smaller portion of ridership. And so the LA County Transportation Commission built the blue line in 1990, and then the Southern California Rapid Transit District built the red line in 1993. They merged eventually in 93 to form the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Authority, known as Metro today. So continue. And so we can see we have, this is a map displaying all the different kinds of extensions that we're having. Soon we're going to connect the Expo and Green lines so that people can ride to LAX. We're extending the Gold line to go from Pasadena all the way into the foothills in San Gabriel Valley. We're extending the Purple line to go where it ends in Koreatown to go all the way to UCLA. And one day we're going to connect to the green and the blue lines so you can ride through the South Bay as well. Continue. But my question is for the research, is all this construction extensions, are they justified? And so my analysis procedure is to obtain ridership and mileage data from Metro, and then using statistical regression to analyze and see whether this is all justified. And then use a model to make assessments for policy. Continue. So in my lit review, I've had people that were both for and against light rail transit. For some, like Laura J. Nelson, she used a study by the USC Price School of Public Policy to determine that people who live within a few miles of the Expo line drive 10 to 12 miles less than everybody else, which is very important for LA because there's so much congestion due to car traffic. For other people like John Siemens from the Journal of Transportation Law, Logistics and Policy, he said that it's not justified because light rail costs twice as much per passenger ridership as it does for a bus system. And then for other people like Brian Lutz and Leah Brooks from the Sokola Public Square, they discussed that even on corridors in LA where there were rail lines and there are no longer, there was still a very high, there is still very much a presence of density there, which is important because we have so much sprawl in LA. We do need to condense more to better use our land. Continue. So here's my raw data. So you can see that I broke everything down systematically between monthly average weekday boardings and monthly average weekday miles. So I used the blue line, the green line, and the gold line. And so for the sum of all the people moved for the monthly average weekday boardings, the blue line from 1990 through 2011 was 14,962,549, which is a huge number of people, mind you. So go ahead and continue. I collected a series of 254 data points for the blue line, 195 for the green, and 97 for the gold. And each data point represents a month. And so my B1 was 6 for the blue line, 5.4 for the green, and 6.8 for the gold. My B0 was 81,295, 48,482, and 12,528. And this represents the multiplier for the average weekday passenger boardings. And then when there is no increase or decrease in passenger miles traveled, it remains at a constant of these numbers for each of these lines. And so I ended up with these formulas, which I used to build my regression model. So continue. So you can see in this regression model, there's a very, very consistent causal relationship between average passenger weekday boardings and average and monthly average passenger miles traveled, which is important because if we have more people boarding, it only makes sense that they should be traveling more that they should be traveling a longer distance on the rail transit line. And since our rail system is so extensive, we want people to travel longer distances. If they are traveling shorter distances, it wouldn't be as effective. But if people are commuting all the way from Long Beach and going into LA, or vice versa from LA to Long Beach, or even going all the way from Pasadena into LA, that's what we want to see. We want to see people using these longer commutes to take traffic off of the freeways and to reduce congestion. So this is for the blue line. Continue. For the green line, it's almost, it's not exactly the same, but it's a very, very similar causal relationship. You can see it's almost at a perfect, the trend line is almost at a perfect 45-degree angle, where you have the month data points showing a very consistent causal relationship. And then for the gold, it's also similar as well. So continue. So based off of this, we can make policies to better use our transit system. And so what we want to do is we want to have even more ridership. Because we are building all these extensions that I just showed you, we would expect to have increased ridership to make it more effective. And so in doing that, we can make our transit system more ADA or handicap friendly. We can make stations the focal points of communities. We can have better bus and other public transit system connections to and from rail, and all other sorts of policy in terms of that area. We can make service more reliable and rapid. So currently, if you're going all the way from downtown Long Beach to LA, it can take anywhere from an hour to 45 minutes depending on breakdowns and whatnot. And the rail system on the blue line is currently not grade separated in most portions, which means it has to cross certain streets. And there has been a history of suicides and crashes on the blue line because it does cross streets at grade. So what we could do is that we could grade separate the rail from the street to make it more effective, faster, so that it doesn't have to slow down when it crosses these intersections. We can also increase funding to ensure that these extensions get built in a timely manner. Currently, the Purple Line extension from Wilshire Western to UCLA is not slated to be completed until 2035. And that's because of the lack of funding. If we had more secure funding, we could get it done in 2023, which is a significant decrease in the amount of time that it would take. So you can implement formal taxes, because we do have something called Measure R, but that's only lasting for 16 years. If we had a permanent tax in California or in LA to ensure that we have money to build all this rail transit, it would help to ensure that this would be done in a timely manner. Continue. So flaws or limitations of my research. Perhaps my perspective was too broad. Perhaps I didn't account for all the micro fluctuations that occurred, because I was looking at, for the Blue Line, 20 years, over 20 years of ridership, going from 1998 to 2011. That's a huge amount of time. There could have been small increases or decreases that could have affected ridership that I didn't pick up on. I also would have liked to look at demographics to see whether more women or more men were riding, whether more Latinos, Latinas, or Blacks or Asians were riding, and if there is a certain disparity in those groups, to try and find out what the agency could do to increase ridership in those areas. And so with that, I yield the rest of my time and go Metro. Thank you.